Bookcase and Coffee presents Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance.
Hey all, welcome to a quick shot of romance. This is Becky, and with me this episode is Carolina from Curl Up with a Book. Welcome back to the podcast, friend.
Glad to be back.
So on this episode of A Quick Shot of Romance, we're reviewing a book by one of your most favorite authors. I'm super excited. We read My Unexpected Serenity. It's California Billionaires Book 1 by Harlow James. And how long do you know how long she's been publishing? Is she fairly newer to the world?
I think she has about maybe 8 to 10 books published.
Okay, so maybe a couple years.
Maybe a couple years. I don't know for sure. I discovered her last year and read a couple of her books and fell in love with her writing. And she wrote a holiday romance called Mackenzie's Turn to Fall. And Dylan, the hero in that one, has become one of my all-time favorite book boyfriends.
Yeah.
So,
you have to give the love when an author gives you a book boyfriend. You have to be like, yes. Okay, so give us the synopsis from Goodreads.
The synopsis. I sent her a basket of cheese, but in my defense, it was a gourmet cheese. You know, the expensive stuff. How did I, Wesley Morgan, hotel billionaire and recovering alcoholic, end up sending a woman a basket of cheese? Well, it was only one of two morsels of information I knew about Shayla Mitchel that I thought would get her attention. The bartender across the dimly lit club took me by surprise the moment I saw her, but then I ran into her twice more upon my return to Santa Barbara, California, and that's when I knew I didn't stand a chance. You see, I never expected Shayla. I was on a mission to correct my mistakes and make amends for the choices I made over 6 years ago. Then we crossed paths and turned down a road we both never saw coming. And of course, I couldn't fall head over heels for any easy woman. No, I had to be drawn to the sassy and poise of a girl who doesn't believe in love, and at least the kind that comes from a man like me. Now she's all I can think about, all I ever knew I needed, but she's putting up a fight and testing us both. Can I convince her to let me in? Can I convince myself that we both deserve happiness? But most importantly, can I convince her that sometimes good people can cause irreparable harm before they can cultivate good?
So the release date for this was February 7th of 2021. So it's a new release this year. Tropes, billionaire romance, instant connection, two different worlds, and damaged hero, but it's also a damaged heroine. I think they both come to the story with some baggage. Steam level 3.5 to a 4 out of 5, I would say. I mean, there were some good steamy sex scenes, but it wasn't all about the sex. There was some big swoony romantic moments that gave just as much steam as an actual bedroom scene. I would say angst level a 3 out of 5. The angst is, I don't know if it's situational angst or if it's more personal angst. It's a good balance of both, but it's not an overly angsty story.
Correct. I think there's more personal redemption is, I think, where the angst comes in.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I would agree with that. So let's get into our thoughts a little bit. Let's start with Shayla. I really liked her. I really connected with her. She's hardworking. She's working 2 jobs, but she has a lot of baggage coming, just her as a person.
She does. She has 2 jobs and she's going to school.
Yeah. And determined. I mean, like, this is a girl with some fortitude and pushing forward.
Yeah, she does have a lot of baggage from her mom, particularly. And so she really wants to set herself up. So she has a lot of tenacity to not make the mistakes her mother has made. And that really, I felt that really was a driving force for her.
Well, I think it makes her you as a reader connect with her because she has this force, this strength and a fierceness about her that she is not going to be her mother. She is not repeating her mother's mistakes. She
Hmm.
sees very clearly who her mother was. I don't think she loves her mother any less. I just think she knows this is not who she wants to be.
And that's
So,
not the life she wants to live.
yeah, and I think that you get this really strong, fierce character that as a reader, you connect with. You're rooting for her. You are on team Shayla from the get.
Yeah. And there's kind of jumping ahead a little bit. There's, I think I fell in even more like girl crush with her that when she challenges Wes, like, why do you want to go out with me? I don't understand this. Like, why me? And that moment, instead of her pondering it like for herself, she confronts him, which I
Yeah.
loved because you don't see that a lot.
No, and I like that she was very articulate with her demands of Wes.
Hmm.
She saw him, knew that he was a man with money, and because of her mother and her mother's mistakes in life, she was very hesitant to even allow Wes to approach her. And she was super articulate in what she was going to tolerate and what she wasn't going to tolerate um, from him. And in some male character relationships, that challenge can sometimes either make the guy try too hard or they just fall flat. I mean, and so I do like how Harlow wrote Wes because he met the challenges. He did listen. So let's talk about that a little
Right.
bit. Let's talk about Wes and who he is before we get into the nitty gritty of their relationship.
Yes.
Um, So I have him as damaged hero, a lot of baggage. He fights a lot of temptations in his life. He's
Hmm.
keeping secrets, and even though he has a best friend, he has two best friends. Um, he's very much a lone wolf.
And I think some of that I felt like some of that was because of his recovery and not, he kind of had to separate himself. And the result of, because he inherited the company from his grandfather. And um, and so it skipped his father. And so I think that kind of put him, thrust him to be by himself as well, like kind of separated him from people. So
Right.
between his recovery and then becoming the CEO of this company, he really had to step up to a different level.
Yeah. And it happened to him when he was young too. So,
Hmm.
you know, um so it makes sense a little bit that he kind of went for the lone wolf and not just crowded himself around with his friends and remain young. He realized that there was a need for maturity and some things had because of his addiction, he had some things
Hmm.
happen in his life that he's working his steps. She very much references the AA and the steps and he's working on the
His
steps of
sponsor.
yeah, we talk about a sponsor and this he's working on the step of making amends, which, is often thought of as being the hardest of the
And
steps.
part of the whole reason he's in Santa Barbara, where this book is set, is that he's working on amends.
So with his so he comes at it with a lot of baggage. He has these family expectations and I want to give props to Harlow James and how she wrote this. A lot of times and I love a billionaire romance. So this trope is like catnip for me. I love this. Um a lot of times when we get billionaire romances and the main characters are coming at each other from different worlds. Either he is not wealthy or she is not wealthy. Family expectations and family drive sometimes define the whole story to the point that it is bogged down in this family baggage and drama or living up to expectations. While in this book, she mentions it and it is an antagonist, but it is not so overshadowing that it is daunting. It doesn't take
And
over the story.
I would agree. And I think it becomes more about the characters' expectations and them finding their own path and driving their own direction of who they want to be versus who the family expects or pushes them to be.
Yeah. So, there were some big swoony moments in this book.
Mm.
I mean, you get that right from the synopsis. He sends her a basket of cheese.
It's my kind of gift. Don't
I
send me
mean,
flowers, send me cheese.
honestly, cheese, I mean, I don't even care much about chocolate, baked good, and cheese. I mean, that's totally my jam. I loved the part where she texts him about the blue cheese and that
That was hilarious.
her roommate Chloe is like, "It smells so
No
bad."
stinky
She's going,
cheese.
"I like stinky cheese." That's so funny. Um, I also liked, well, okay, so I like it, but it frustrates me. When you have a billionaire romance like this, and so there's a part where Wes and Shayla are going to, he's invited her to join her at a social function, a gala. And she pushes hard against Wes about him wanting to pamper her and provide her with a stylist and a dress. And while I understand where she was feeling on that, that that was kind of a big swoony moment. He was trying to take care of her.
I would agree. I would agree. And I think it's part of her struggle because of her mom. Um, but I did feel like it was a super swoony moment because he really wanted to show her there are some privileges and luxury of having money. And this was after the first date where she specifically told him, that was another like big swoony moment for me, that she told him for the first date, okay, no money. You can't spend a whole lot. This just has to be about us. And his response to that and what he does was just extremely thoughtful. I don't want to give it away because
No,
it
and
was so, I think it was perfect for them and where their location and
it was too. And when they first started dating, sometimes in billionaire romances, the male will pretty much just steamroll over the female and say, "Quit your job. I can provide for you. I'll take care of that. I'll pay those for you." And because of her own baggage and the own situation with her money, she was working 2 jobs and going to school. And he was
Mhm.
supportive. And he even talks about how he doesn't want her to go to work at the bar. It bothers him. However, he never comes out to her and says, "Quit that job. I don't want you there." And I thought that kinda is kinda swoony. That gives him some extra points. At least I thought so.
Well, I think it showed also what he appreciated about her.
Yeah.
He wasn't looking for just arm candy. He was attracted somebody who could stand her ground and had her own mind and had her own passions and
Yeah.
convictions.
I did love when he took his sister. His sister comes to visit him in Santa Barbara. She comes up from, Los Angeles to visit him, and his first thought is to take her to the coffee shop to meet Shayla. That was
I
so
loved that
awesome.
moment.
That was so funny. Well, and I thought, "Oh god, either this is gonna go terribly wrong, this is gonna be, like, a really bad moment."
Well, because
Uh,
Shayla had no warning for this. Like,
right.
was thrust into this like first meeting, like, oh.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the supporting characters. We had Chloe, who is Wes's sister. Or no, I'm sorry, Chloe is Shayla's roommate. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Um, she is she is Shayla's ride or die. I think we all need a Chloe in our lives.
agreed.
She kind of
Absolutely.
she kicked her ass, she pushed her out the door, she cheered her on. She bought her the big bag of Doritos.
She comforted her, like she
Yeah.
was there. They knew each other, and that goes back to when they left LA. LA, right? They used
Yes.
to live in LA.
Mm-hmm. They used to
Um,
live in LA. Mm-hmm.
they left together, and so they're essentially like sisters, and
They
they're
are.
there for each other. They've known so much about each other that they are there to support and cheer and help each other set their lives up the way that they want.
Yeah. And they're both together. They're a force. And I really liked Chloe. I thought she was a great character. And I hope we're gonna get her story because
I
she's
hope
gonna
so
be a
too.
handful. So, Harlow, if you're listening,
We need that like yesterday.
we're not very good at waiting. So let's talk
I
about
want it now.
Hayes. Let's talk about Hayes, who is Wes's best friend. Um, okay, he comes off as a bit of a man whore, but I do like that he pushes Wes outside his comfort zone, um, all the while having his back.
Yes.
He's
He's a character in his own right. He's loud and opinionated and ballsy and going for it. He's supportive of Wes, but at the same token, there's also this like quiet force about him supporting Wes that I also liked. There was a
'cause
great balance in that. That you knew he was kind of Wes's ride or die, but he wasn't um, like in his face all the time.
yeah. Well, I liked that even when he wasn't on page or on the scene, you knew that in Wes's moment that Hayes had been there for him. Hayes had reached out to him.
Yeah.
Hayes also was able to read in the sense as knowing that Wes going to Santa Barbara because of the baggage that was there, because of the things that he was going to Santa Barbara to do, that he needed to kind of be prepared to have some fun, or it was going to be too overwhelming and potentially, it could lead to him having issues with his sobriety. So I think that was Hayes's part of his push to say, dude, get it wet. Do stuff. He
I'm a
was so
lady.
ridiculous. He was so ridiculous. And then there's Waverly.
You need that balance of somebody who is so kind of deep and coming out of a dark space. You need that light to balance him out
He
in that
is.
comedy.
Yeah. Well, and then there is Hayes's mortal enemy, Waverly, who is Wes's sister.
Oh god.
Those
Waverly
two.
and Wes. Oh, that's actually the book I want next.
Oh, what I
That
mean,
is the
Waverly
one.
and Hayes. You mean Waverly and Hayes?
Yes.
Yeah, she kind of plopped. I'm not going to spoil it, but she plops some crap at the end that leaves you gobsmacked, going, "What the heck just happened here, sister?" Yeah, yeah. I really liked her. She comes off a little bit of sunshine. I don't know. You almost get the feeling that she didn't necessarily have the same childhood experiences or expectations that Wes had growing up. She doesn't seem as weighed down with the familia expectations that Wes obviously is.
And I think part of that is because you get the sense as you're reading in his relationship, Wes's relationship with his grandfather and the time that he spent with his grandfather away without his parents, like he would go visit and spend time with him, that there was a certain amount of grooming that his grandfather did for Wes out of love, completely
Right.
out of love. But Waverly didn't have that.
Yeah. Right. I think that they had very different expectations of life placed upon their shoulders. And again, I'm very interested to see Waverly and Hayes.
Their banter.
It was hot on the page and it wasn't even their stinking story.
I know. Oh, I need
But
it
we heard
now. I need it
rumors
now.
that maybe May. We heard rumors we might see that in May. So
2 months too long.
right. So the only other thing that I thought before we get into our recommendations and all that kind of stuff, I did get a little frustrated with Shayla when it came to the relationship with Wes. She was quick to call time out a lot, and gives Wes and doesn't give Wes a lot of time to explain. There was the thing at the club, there was the thing in Vegas, and then there's a piece, and I don't wanna spoil what happens, but the big moment when she finally is, like,
Mhm.
feeling like she's turning into her mother, she walks away from Wes. I felt like she easily gave up.
I could see that.
I don't think
Yeah, I could see
communication
that.
was her she wasn't very great at communicating.
It's funny because there's certain times where she was like, this is like, if we're going on a date, then I don't want you to spend money. And there's other times the insecurity would creep in. So it's that fine line, you know.
Yeah.
At the same time, you have to have part of that in order to have the conflict in the book. So it's that balance of
Oh, I wanted it there. It still can annoy me. It's like having children. I want them, but they annoy me. It's the good and the bad. I know it has to be there. It just is annoying. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
And I think Wes had his moments of that too, to a certain degree, because he does have secrets as part of his recovery and that he's trying to make amends. And you you don't know what those secrets are. And they're revealed to you as they are revealed to Shayla. And you're like, come on, dude, tell her. Just tell her. Like,
Yeah. Well, come on, dude, just tell us. Tell us. Because I
right.
had some thoughts and some things happen, and I thought, no, that's not going to happen. And then crap happens, and I was kind of like, what? Why didn't he just communicate better? Why didn't he just, you know, secrets are always to a detriment. There's never a good secret. Okay, so we're hitting close on our time here. So, Carolina, did you like this book?
I loved this book. I loved it because I do love billionaire tropes, but I felt like this had a different layer, and that may have been, the damaged hero recovery to it. So it wasn't all about the money and the differences.
It wasn't a rescue romance, and a lot of times billionaire trope romances come off as rescue romances. I also don't feel like Wes had an opulence about him that you sometimes get. This wasn't about the grandeur of an estate or what fancy cars he was driving. There was a bit of a simplicity to him that just in the way he lives in his day to day that we don't always get in billionaire romances, and that can sometimes feel daunting.
Yeah.
Um,
He's
and
like, I have the money and it gives me privilege and luxuries that I know a lot of people don't have, but I don't need it.
Right. But even like the scene where they go on, I think it would be their second date and they go out on the yacht, it's not it's not a brand new yacht. It's not the biggest yacht. There's a connection there. There's a story to it. So I think that that creates a different feel to this trope.
Yes.
So, I will say it did take me a minute to get into the rhythm of the story. Um, Harlow James is a newer to me author, and but I did really like the story, and I can't wait for book two. And I better get book three too, sister. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, who do you think would typically like this book?
um, I think people who do like the billionaire trope, who like a damaged hero, but who also like character driven stories, because this was very focused on the characters and their
Yeah.
growth together.
Yeah, I put also if you like Damaged Hero, or honestly, I felt like Harlow James writes in a similar storytelling style to Melissa Foster. And again, Melissa Foster's books are very character driven. Um, and so if you like that, if you like a character story that the development of the plot and the storyline are really driven by the characters and not situation, then that's who I would recommend this book for. Um, so would you recommend this book to someone else?
Absolutely.
She did
100
to
times
me.
yes. I did.
She did to me. And absolutely, it was a great story with some big swoons and the right amount of feels that I would totally recommend this story out to people, particularly if you want to read billionaire romance but don't want a rescue romance. This is a perfect example of billionaire done well without that feeling of rescue. So anyway, Carolina, thank you for joining me once again. I can't wait until we chat books again.
Thanks so much, Becky. It's been fun.
We will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Find us on Instagram at Buzzing About Romance or on Twitter at Buzzing Romance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.